Hello everyone, Shinto Bean here playing some more Warhammer combat cards, and here we are at the beginning of a new season of Ranked Mode, looking at the balance changes and the new battle pass for the start of the new season, which is Votann themed. This will be the second Votann battle pass, I believe. I did actually purchase the first one, but this one doesn't really look all that attractive. The cosmetics are real nice, but the cards are not particularly amazing unless you really want to expand your Votann collection, which I think are still, for a lot of players, one of the least interesting factions to both play as and play against, because they only have 2 warlords, and that will remain unchanged for the time being. But they talk about how a lot of the Votann cards are ranged heavy, so they're kind of buffing the melee cards a little bit more in this season. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the changes, starting with the Leagues of Votann. First off, we got this guy with Fear, and secondary trait is Furious Charge. He's getting +6 to his melee attack. Next, this warrior with Big Game Hunter is just down 1 point to 10 points. We've got the Jump Pack Warrior. This is a card that I do not own in my collection, but he is getting a pretty significant buff of +10 to his melee attack. And then this 22-point guy with shields is getting +9 to his melee attack. And finally, this champion here is getting +10 to his health and +5 to his melee attack. Moving on to Eldari, we got the Razorwing Flock getting +5 to his health and +3 to its melee attack. As a 3-point taunt card, this is a very useful one, so buff to an already decent card. Next up, we got the Ranger. This is down 2 points, so it used to be 20, now it's 18, and getting +10 to its ranged attack. I know it's gotten its attack stats buffed on numerous occasions, but now it's all the way up to 81 ranged at the level I have it. Still very much a glass cannon, very low health for its cost. But yeah, 81 ranged is nothing to sneeze at. So I might have to give this a shot this season, just try it out with maybe Illic Night Spear, try to snipe some enemies with that rifle. And then we got the Fire Prism, which had Barrage, and now they switched the trait to Precision Shot, which is an interesting choice. It does have a pretty massive ranged attack. Mine does 100 damage, and the Precision Shot would then deal 80 damage, so that's quite good. Of course, I can be buffed even more with like Zephyr Blades, Special Rule, but Barrage was quite good as well. I didn't actually really use this card because it's so expensive, and there are plenty of other powerful options. But if we look at the unreleased cards, they're actually releasing another tank, the Night Spinner, which does have Barrage. So this is basically what the Fire Prism used to be. That will be added as well. So we have 2 tanks with different traits. Moving on to the Necrons. The Psychomancer is getting a pretty decent buff of +10 to its ranged and melee attack stats. This one used to be quite weak when it was on the field, but now it can hit a little bit harder. We got this Cryptek here with Medicae, a very old card, one of the oldest ones in my collection, and I do have it at a very high level. It's gotten its cost reduced by 3, so it's down to 16 points, making it a very cheap option. It's going to be quite cost effective. Moving on to Tau. The Stingwing is getting +8 to its ranged attack. It's got ranged Scout Force trait, so definitely a lot better now. Its attack was really the thing that was holding it back before. Got the 6-point Missile Drone getting +10 to its health. And if we look down at the unreleased cards, it looks like we do have an Epic Ethereal that will be coming out soon. So this one has only a melee attack and Inspiring Presence with ranged buff, so it's pretty similar to the Ethereal that's already in the game, I think. But this one, as an Epic, it does have Medicae as its secondary trait, which is quite handy. In a max level event, that could be a pretty strong one, and I'm hoping, with all the new Kroot models that will be released this year, hopefully we'll see more of those in the game, and maybe even get a Kroot Warlord. That would be awesome. Moving on to Servants of the Emperor. So Inquisitor Greyfax recently got her special rule nerfed pretty massively, so it's percentage based instead of just by points. So they have sort of buffed her, I guess, by reducing her cost significantly. So 10 points less, that gives you another stack of her special rule just for free. But they also reduced her stats as well, so -30 health and -4 to all of her attack stats. So the Warlord Herself will be less powerful, but you'll get a little bit more out of her special rule at least, which I think is a good change. Next up, we got the Triumph of St. Catherine, getting reduced by 5 points down to 34, and also 30 less health. So that is like a shockingly low amount of health for a 34-point card. If you look at that, mine is only at level 2. But this is a card that is extremely powerful at max level. Like in those max level events, having 4 shields and Inspiring Presence and being so cheap that it's not the target of Big Game Hunter, this thing can just survive for a crazy amount of time. Now, you'll have a little bit more freedom to fit it in decks, but yeah, it's pretty useless, I think, unless it's at a very high level. Moving on to Space Marines, first thing you notice here, if you look at the Warlords, you got Lionel Johnson, previously only available in special events, but now it looks like he will be another Supreme Commander entering the game, and his special rule functions in the same way, so that's unchanged. He has 100 points, and yeah, I got shields and outflank. Those are his stats at max level. And as for bodyguard stat changes, we got the Imperial Fist Centurion getting +5 to its ranged and +10 to its melee attack. Interrogator Chaplain Zacchaeus. This guy, haven't really used him much either, despite having him at a very high level. 2 points less, 10 more health, and +5 melee. And if we look down at the unreleased bodyguards, it looks like we are getting some Raven Guard Scouts. So very cheap at like 8 points. This is a pretty useful card. Got equal ranged and melee attacks and target acquired for its trait. We also got this 10-point Heavy Bolter Scout, which actually has a pretty impressive ranged attack from the get-go and ranged scout. So another fairly useful card. Moving on to Chaos. So we got the Herald of Tzeentch. This one is getting a pretty massive buff of +20 health and +10 to its psychic attack. With Psionic Blast, it's a very powerful card, and it was useful before as well. I think it did have kind of lower stats being an older card, but this makes it very strong for its cost. Definitely worth taking in a psychic deck. We got the Aspiring Sorcerer. This guy is down 2 points and getting +15 to its psychic and +5 to its melee attack stats. So pretty significant buff, but I think anti-infantry on this guy was not really a buff. I think it was more of a nerf, honestly. Psychic Link, in most cases, just did a lot more damage. Got some big changes to Lucius the Eternal. So this guy was just a pretty tanky card with low damage output. But now they rearranged some of his upgrades so that he has more melee upgrades instead of health upgrades, and also gave him +40 health and +10 to his melee attack. So now he hits like a truck. It's crazy how much damage he does now. 80 damage at this level with Furious Charge as the secondary, and then he can hit again with the Furious Charge when he respawns from Endless. So yeah, this guy definitely a lot better now. I think I'm going to be running him with Skulltaker for sure. And then we got another very drastic change to Karn the Betrayer, who is a very old card in the original set when the game was first released. So I have him. He's one of my highest level epics. He had Berserk as his main trait, but that has been changed to Furious Charge, which is quite a bit better because he didn't really have the most health, despite being a 40-point card that takes more damage for big game hunters. He usually could not stay alive long enough to really make a huge amount of use out of the Berserk, but now he just smacks the enemy really hard when deploying, and then he's also got Death Blow for his secondary trait, so he will fight again when he dies, and he's getting +10 to his ranged attack. So I like this change quite a bit. I think he's going to be a lot more useful now, pretty much essential, I would say, in any melee deck. So I think, yeah, I'll definitely be running him this season. Moving on to Orcs. If you've been playing the game for a while, you may be noticing a trend here. A lot of the older cards are getting buffed. So like this Knob with the banner is getting +2 to his ranged and +10 to his melee. Pretty big change there. Got the Bubble Chukka Mech Gun. This thing is down 2 points, down to 13. And as for new cards, if we look at the unreleased ones, we do have a Truck. Very cool model there. Surprisingly, it's only 17 points, very cheap for a vehicle of that size. It's got taunt and a lot of health, not so much attack power, so we're kind of seeing a lot of these sort of mid-range taunt vehicles being released recently for different factions. Also, this one was in the shop a few days ago, the Burna Bomber, pretty big, powerful ranged aircraft with barrage. Moving on to Tyranids. So the 2-point Neuraloid is getting a melee attack, just a 3 melee attack. It still has only health upgrades, so it's not until the max level that it gets up to 5 melee attack. But yeah, that'll make a slight difference. I mean, you can maybe ping a shield or something with it. And also, if you're running it with Gosar for whatever reason, Gosar will buff the melee attack now. We got a crazy change to Death Leaper, so his main trait is getting switched from Outflank to Fear, which is quite strong. So he won't be able to boost your attack when he deploys, but he is a lot tougher, a lot harder to kill. This is important, I think, because Tyranids are kind of lacking a lot of these powerful defensive traits like Fear and Shields, especially like on the melee cards. There's hardly anything like that for the bodyguards, so now Death Leaper will be able to serve that sort of role to absorb a lot of damage. And then we got the big Hive Tyrant with Inspiring Presence and Berserk. This is a card that I really could not find a use for. So it is getting buffed this season. It's 2 points cheaper. Now at 48 points. It's got plus 10 to its Psychic and plus 5 melee. So it comes out of the gate swinging a little bit harder. I still find it kind of difficult for it to find a place in most decks, though. Like the Psychic melee combo is really not very useful. I mean, it's absolutely useless against enemy range decks. So I might try it out though with the Parasite Mortrex maybe and see if I can get it to really to do anything. And that's it for the stat changes for Tyranids. But if we look at the unreleased cards, we do get a really big one here. Very cool model. This is the Scythed Hierodule, and it's got Death Blow for its main trait and Furious Charge for its secondary trait. At 84 points, it's one of the most expensive bodyguards. Those are the stats at max level, so it does hit really hard. Unfortunately, this thing suffers from something that we've seen in the past, where they're giving something with a lot of health Death Blow for its main trait, which is just not going to work, because, like, okay, it's not going to die. And so you're just not going to see the Death Blow go off. And 84 points is like prohibitively expensive too. Also compare it to the Trigon, which is 14 points cheaper, has way more health, and Furious Charge, which is a much better main trait on something like this. And its attack stats are not much different even at max level, which is kind of crazy to me. So hopefully this thing does get buffed in the future, but it is a cool model to see added to the Tyranid roster. So yeah, that's it for the balance changes and new cards for this season. Let me know what you think. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.